Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. Today, you know what? After that performance, I don't think we should wear the Dallas Cowboy hat today. That was a disappointing game. Dak was throwing so inaccurate, and it seems like every time the Cowboys do this, where they play horrible in the first half and then try to play catch up in the second half, and it's never enough to win the game. Sometimes it's a very frustrating team. Well, maybe like the last 30 years, it's been a frustrating team to watch. All right, on to this actual video. This past weekend, went to a little tournament, just a one-dayer. Had 3 games, a lot of fun. I tried the Seraphon 1-drop that I talked about in the last video to see if it had any legs. Wanted to play up against some competitive armies, and I had a chance to do that. So I went 1 and 2, unfortunately, but not my best showing. Not my best showing by far. I think actually maybe the last tournament I went 1 and 2 also. So maybe Seraphon's just not that good, or maybe it's me that's not that good. I don't know yet. Sometimes I've got to stop playing goofy lists. Maybe that's it. All right, so here's my list. We talked about it in the last video, but it is a 1-drop. It's exactly 2,000 points. That always feels good when you make a list. It's exactly 2,000 points. So it is in the battle formation Sunclaw Starhost, so I get the extra pile-in at the end of any turn that my Saurus or Kroxigor are in combat. They can make a pile-in move, do some mortal wounds. Actually came in pretty good this game, or this tournament. My Slann is my general with incandescent Retrices and Beastmaster, so he will be healing in both my hero phase and the opponent's hero phase. And then Beastmaster gives my Aggradon Lancers an extra 2 inches to their move, as long as they start within range of him. That plus the movement asterism really makes them fly real far if I need them to. I do have 2 units of Aggradons reinforced and 2 units of Kroxigor. So I'm looking at this list and I'm like, I've got a lot of beef here. I've got a lot of hitting power. I can do a lot of damage, that's for sure. I can grind out a game, I feel like, pretty well. But I'm going to struggle with battle tactics, that's for sure. But without Hunters of Huanchi, there's going to be a couple battle tactics that are just off the board. Like, take their lance is going to be a little bit more difficult with this list. Secure the flanks is going to be a little bit more difficult without the hunters in there to play that role, or some smaller units like Ripperdactyls or Raptidons to go grab those. So that does make this a little bit harder. But as a 1-drop, hopefully I can force the other person to go first, which happened every time. And then I have a chance for a double turn from 1 to 2. And then I don't have to worry about that battle tactic that I'm not going to get, because I can just throw one away on that double. And then hopefully shut the door on the game at that point. Now, that's a lot riding on a double turn, but, that's kind of what this list is probably best at. I did take a Realm Shaper Engine. Didn't do a whole lot. Lore of Celestial Manipulation for the run and charge and Comet's Call. Comet's Call did pretty good in this game. I was able to get some mortal wounds out of that, and then run and charge is always great. And I did the Primal Energy Manifestations this time. I kind of like this one. It was pretty fun having the Gnashing Jaws as like a damage dealer, and can do some mortal wounds on the charge, and then has a decent profile. 10 attacks, 4s and 2s, -1, 2 damage on the charge. Think of it like a Stegodon, but better, and it's free. That's basically what it was. So I tried to countercast this a lot, so in my first turn I could use it to go ahead and do some charging and do some damage. I felt like it did pretty well. The healing spell, I can't think of the name of it right now. In that one, Life Swarm, did pretty well. I healed up some stuff with that, and then Burning Head. I think I cast it out maybe once or twice, and it didn't do much. I have it there to do a little bit of shooting if I need to, but it never really came up. So overall, I'll give you a little rundown of how the list did overall. Let's just start from the top. 1-drop, I got the 1-drop. I got the priority every single game, so that was great. There aren't a whole lot of 1-drops out there, and so generally I think you're going to get the priority most of the time. Sunclaw was actually pretty good. I didn't take Shadow Strike because I have nothing that would benefit from it. I didn't really have anything that I needed to teleport, so I didn't take the teleporting one. Sunclaw just seemed like the right choice with these 4 units, and it paid off. I was able to do quite a few mortal wounds with that. Did some pylon shenanigans to help me secure objectives and whatnot. So I like that one. That was good. Slann, over these 3 games, I never once brought back a unit. I really only had a chance one time, and I rolled on it, and I didn't roll a 4-up. So I felt like that was a little bit of a wasted opportunity. With this specific list, I mean these 4 units are just extremely hard to kill, and so once they do die, it's usually later in the game, and at that point, if you're in turn 3 or 4 and you're on a 4-up, if you miss it, that's probably your only chance to get it. I had one game where Slann got killed by like an ambushing unit, so I'd never had a chance to do it in that one. But really, never brought a unit back with a Slann, which was kind of disappointing. Especially when you see some of these other units, some of these other armies that bring back stuff quite easily. Incandescent Retresses didn't really come up. Slann was never really injured by much like plink damage or anything. No, not a lot of shooting in what I faced. And if somebody got into him, they'd just kill him. So Beastmaster was very good to help the Aggradons. Aggradons did well. They run into the same problem where if they get a -1 to hit onto them, they are neutered pretty hard. And so it seems like I always face OBR in our local meta, and I faced OBR again, and they're able to debuff these Aggradons so easily, and that really hurts them. So their damage goes down quite a bit once they do that. Kroxigor, amazing. I didn't take the War Spawn because I just don't have any skink units to buff up that damage. So the +1 rend really isn't that big of a deal, to be honest. If you get into a monster, fantastic. The War Spawn get +1 damage. These Kroxigor I feel like are a little bit more useful because there's more infantry than monsters in what I feel like is our meta. And so these Kroxigor, they got into infantry a couple times and just absolutely did work. And then if they got into a monster, which they did a couple times, they had enough wounds to sit there and grind against them that it wasn't that big a deal. They were able to do quite a bit of damage still, even though that -1 rend from the Kroxigor, where that's all they're hitting with, it does feel like a bit of a pillow sometimes against certain units. So Realm Shaper Engine, not real consequential. I think I did mortal wounds from it a few times and then got +1 to hit in one fight. But really, when you look at this thing, at the Realm Shaper Engine, and look at some of the other faction terrain, and you're just thinking, why can't I have that? Why can't I have the better thing? This army, I don't really have the luxury of keeping my Slann near it, because he's got to be near the Aggradons. He's got to be buffing them. He's got to be casting spells. He's got to move up with them, or he's just going to be left open to be shot. So I can't play the Realm Shaper that aggressively because the terrain maps in this edition, there's just no room to play it that aggressively. So it ends up in like the corner or just not on the board. Celestial Manipulation was good. Primal Energy, I felt like that was good. So, all right, that was kind of my rundown of those. Let's get on to Game 1. Game 1, I'm playing against Jonathan. I've played against him quite a few times. It's been a long time since I've beat him. He's a very good player. He's playing OBR 2 drops. I beat him on that. He does have Kronspine. He's got Archon the Black as his general with a reinforced unit of Death Riders, a Mortek Crawler. Ooh, that thing was harassing me all game. A Mortis and Soul Mason, reinforced unit of Immortus Guard, reinforced unit of Mortek Guard, and another unit of Mortek Guard and the Bone Type Nexus. Quite a bit of wounds here for an OBR list. The Death Riders are always pretty good. They're fast. They take buffs really well. There's lots of buffs OBR can give them, and that makes them very hard to kill. And also, they hit pretty hard when they charge. So, a good unit there. I mean, okay, let's look at this. Archon the Black versus a Slann. A little bit more expensive than a Slann, cheaper than Krox, but actually does things. He's able to buff units around him. He's able to do damage. Some really good damaging spells. Just so much better than Slann. My Slann is sitting over there like, oh, I've got board-wide unbinds. Okay, well, I don't have any pluses to unbind, so I'm not unbinding a ton. And after like turn 1, board-wide unbinds don't really matter anyway because you're going to be close enough to each other as it is. Archon the Black is just such a better caster than the Slann. Cavalos Death Riders. Now, I don't want to seem like I'm complaining too much. Gosh, guys. But seeing some of these other armies and their abilities that they could stack on their stuff just makes me jealous. So Death Riders, I mean, think of like Raptidons, but just so much better. Yeah. So they're more expensive, obviously, but like to get our Raptidons up to the level of these Death Riders, you'd have to take a Skink Star Priest, a Skink Star Seer also with them, and then they're still not as useful as these Death Riders. So to get them to that level, you have to bring a bunch of this other junk that doesn't even get them to be as good as that. Mortek Crawler? Oh, okay. Well, you want some comparisons? It's cheaper than a Bastildon. It has more attacks. It does more damage. It has longer range. And it has an incredible ability to make you fight last. In this game, he hit that 4-up roll on the Mortek Crawler on, I think, every single turn he tried it. And that was in his turn and then my turn in covering fire when he'd cover fire it. And I didn't have anything I could get back there to get into range of it to tie it up. So that Mortek Crawler was just harassing me all and so what happens is you're coming in to attack his stuff and he hits you with covering fire, and now you're fighting last. So even though you do charge in, you're not gonna be able to fight your unit first. So very good ability there. I wish the Bastildon had something like that. Soul Mason, a Mortis Guard are just really good, tanky. They can hit hard. Mortek Guard just become ethereal if you charge in them, which makes them very difficult to deal with. So and Bone Tide Nexus, man, his terrain feature is also very good. You don't have to keep a wizard nearby it, and it just debuffs everybody like crazy. And so very, very useful. Definitely a better terrain piece than what Seraphon has. So we are playing shifting objectives. Here's the map layout, and these terrain pieces that we had available to us were absolutely gigantic. These things are way too big to be a single piece with the terrain maps that we're playing, but that's what we had to deal with. So, I mean, you see these giant pieces of terrain here. This one's Place of Power. This one's Place of Power. But because of this shifting objectives battle plan, they are unstable, so you couldn't put any units on them, and so we end up with this kind of weird deployment where I'm funneled here in the middle and he's funneled over here on the left side. I stacked up my Kroxigor over here to try to push on this side and hopefully hold that objective, and then answer with my Aggradons, because the Aggradons can be a little bit faster, quite a bit faster. Whichever way I needed to with the Aggradons that way. That was kind of the plan. Made him go first. He moves up. Really just kind of gets over here, pulls here, and then puts these guys on the objective. And so definitely going for the underdog on this this battle plan. And that's fine. I have enough speed I can get to him. I think what's my next picture? My next picture is here after his turn. Nothing really happens. He gets Kronspine out, but nothing really happens too much in his turn. My turn, I go over and kill his Mortek Guard over here. And these Kroxigor I was trying to line up a charge onto his Death Riders, but he was able to shoot my Kroxigor, give them fight last. So even if I did make it in, they were gonna be fighting last. That'd be fine. I should have, or I was hoping to just tie them up over on his side of the board a little bit. We had to run these Kroxigor here, so I couldn't make a charge there. I think in retrospect, if I were to go back and do this again, I probably would have pressed a little bit harder with these Kroxigor. This would have left the Aggradons. This would have left the middle open, but either send them here to tie him up in his deployment zone, or send him here to tie up the Mortek Crawler. But I think I needed to put a little bit more pressure on him. I was hoping, as I set up like this, just to grab objectives, get my battle tactic, that I could push on a double turn and really just get all of this beef into his lines and hopefully just tie him up for the rest of the game. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. He got the turn going into 2, and was able to push these cavalry down here into the Kroxigor. It took him a while to take out these Kroxigor, to be honest. And so he brought down Archon into these, shot his Mortek Crawler, brought Kronspine here, and then just set up all his Mortek Guard right there on the objective. So I didn't lose a unit yet. These Kroxigor, they actually stuck in combat quite a while with the Kronspine and Archon. I think that may be the next picture. And this fight over here lasted a while. I think he was thinking he was going to wipe these Kroxigor out pretty fast, but it didn't. They stayed alive. I actually got +1 to hit from the Realm Shaper while I was over here. That's cool. And I was able to put quite a bit of hurt on Archon, but not quite kill him. And if you don't kill that guy, he's going to heal back up. So left him on a couple wounds. On his next turn, he's able to escape out of there, and he was able to keep him alive, get him healed back up and stuff. But really, the Kronspine wasn't too important over the course of the game, really. I charged in my Aggradons, both Aggradons, just because I had to at this point, into his Mortek Guard and the Immortus Guard, and they bounced off of them. I think I killed like maybe 5 to 8 Mortek Guard and 1 Immortus Guard. So they were debuffed a little bit, and the Mortek were fighting first because of an ability they have. They're ethereal, so it was just wasn't able to do enough damage, and he kept the turn priority going in his favor, and so was able to just keep whittling me down. And after turn 3, I think he got... I failed my battle tactic in turn 3, trying to kill Archon. He survived, or maybe I didn't make the charge or something. He redeployed or something like that. I don't quite remember. But I wasn't able to kill Archon, and then he got priority into 4, and at that point we were just able to call it. I had failed a battle tactic, and I was losing guys at that point. He was going to be able to finish off both units of Kroxigor and then get my Slann at that point. So I conceded at that point. It was a good game. Not a lot I could have done. I'm not exactly sure what I would have done differently there. I think part of what hurt me was this deployment. I did not like this deployment on putting all my slower units on the left side and my faster units here in the middle. I think if I were to go back and do that again, of course, I had to put down before he had anything of significance down. But I think if I could have just kept my Kroxigor here in the middle, they could have won that fight a little bit better, and then maybe I could have pushed this side with my Aggradons. But that is what it is. Good game as always. John's always a fun opponent to play, and got to play into some OBR. All right, game 2, I'm playing against Jody, and we're playing on focal points. I feel a little bit better about this one because the objectives are pretty close here in the middle, and I feel like I can fight that out with my units. He's playing Flesh Eater Courts. He's 3-drop, Lords of the Manor. He's got Usharon, a reinforced unit of Crypt Ghouls, so that's like 40 ghouls, another 20-man unit of ghouls. In his 2nd regiment, he's got a Gore Warden with a reinforced unit of Morbeg Knights. And then his 3rd regiment is another Gore Warden and another reinforced unit of Morbeg Knights. So the big threats here, I didn't feel too bad about the ghouls. I feel like if I can get into them with the Kroxigor, it's going to have a heyday with them. The things I don't like are those Morbeg Knights. They're just so fast, and he's going to keep resurrecting them constantly. And that's what he ended up doing. They're hard to catch, and if you don't kill them all, they're gonna be retreating and charging. They're kind of like cheaper Aggradons, but better. You can give them buffs actually. You know, they take buffs very well. Usharon is really good. It seems like. I mean, against a melee army like mine, he is very good. So Usharon has an ability that will make anybody in combat with him, he rolls a dice, and if he rolls over their control, then he's going to make them fight last. So once he got Usharon into my melee stuff, it was a little bit harder to finish off his units as he's making all my stuff fight last. But let's go to deployment here. So on deployment, you can see we've kind of got a little bit of an odd deployment here. But I've got my Kroxigor central here. It's going to go hopefully into his ghouls that are there in the center. So he dropped his ghouls first, and so I kind of had an idea of where I wanted to get my Kroxigor. I have another Kroxigor unit over on this flank here, and then my 2 units of Aggradons right here around my Slann, who's actually touching the Realm Shaper engine. Yay! I think I may have done a few mortal wounds, but when you do a few mortal wounds to some ghouls, who cares? So, again, not very relevant for this game. So, I make him go first. Obviously, he's going to push all these ghouls and Usharon up to the middle. And then these ghouls are going to hold that objective. And then he's holding the Morbeg Knights back and reserve, to kind of answer whatever happens here in the middle. He's got another unit of Morbeg Knights over here that kind of come on the flanks. And I'm pretty good with that because he had to get him pretty far to take the flanks. You know, he had to get him up to here to take the flanks. And that's within charge range of these Kroxigor. So I'm going to try to get these Kroxigor onto those Morbeg Knights and hopefully take them out. So he moves there to the middle, and these 40 ghouls... on my turn, obviously I charge my Kroxigor into them, and these Kroxigor here into infantry that have more than 10 models just absolutely obliterated those ghouls. Those ghouls basically didn't have a save at -2 rend here, and they just... I think the Kroxigor wiped out that unit, if I believe. There may have been one left for the Aggradons to fight, which was actually pretty good because then they got their fight ability. I was able to do all that without pulling in Usharon, who was kind of right behind him. But I just made sure my charges, I kept my guys outside of 3 of him so that I didn't pull Usharon into this combat. I wanted to make sure and take care of those ghouls, and then if I got the double, I could shoot everything into Usharon. Over here against the Morbeg Knights, my Kroxigor took out, I think, 3 or 4 of them. A unit of 6. There may have been like 2 or 3 left. They had to fight second on that one. Actually, I may have fought them first and let the ghouls activate into the Aggradons and Kroxigor, I think. In this battle plan, I did take Quetzal the Preserver for -1 rend because of how far up this the deployment zone is. And so I was able to effectively fight most of this middle fight here in my terrain without crossing over. I was able to send my Kroxigor over here to fight the Morbeg Knights without crossing over. And then it was only until later in the game when my Kroxigor went this way to kind of flank onto Usharon that I got out of my territory. So I was able to keep that -1 rend up on most of my units for a lot of the game, which was pretty critical. So really helped in the melee fight there in the middle. So that was good. Because a lot, I think Usharon was hitting with -2 rend or something at some point, and I was -1 rend and all-out defense, and so I was back to my 4s. So that really helped out a lot. I didn't really need the movement in this one, I don't think, so that was a good choice. The first game I did movement. This one I did the -1 rend. So let's see what other pictures we got. Eventually, here's the start of 2. So we're going into 2 and roll off in it. This is another one where it feels like if I get the roll, if I get the double, this game's over. I'm going to finish off these Morbeg Knights. We're going to finish off Usharon with these 2 units, and then all he would have would be a Morbeg Knight, ghouls, and like 1 hero or 2 heroes kind of out in the flanks doing nothing. At that point, a lot of his power would be gone, and I feel like I would have a pretty good shot there. But he got the turn, priority going into there, and then was able to bring his Morbeg Knights here, Usharon here, and then these Knights actually made a retreat, and then were able to charge also over here. Pretty crazy. Or maybe they charge into the Burning Head. I think that must have been what it was. So he's able to collapse all of his stuff from all the flanks into the middle and hit this fight really hard. So does really well there. Doesn't kill my Kroxigor or my Aggradons. We sit in this fight for a while, but because both the units were fighting last, and Usharon was able to hit the Aggradons pretty well, the Morbeg Knights were able to kill off a couple Kroxigor, and so he's starting to whittle me down, and I'm just not doing enough damage back to him. I think that kind of becomes the final fight here. At the next turn, really my only battle tactic option was Slay the Tyrant, and I thought I could get it going into Usharon here, and just left him on a couple wounds. Left him on like 3 wounds or something. Charged in these Kroxigor, or these Aggradons, and then these Kroxigor as well. So I had this 1-man unit of Aggradons still fighting him. I had one of these Kroxigors that would eventually reach him. I had all these Aggradons, and then 2 or 3 Kroxigor over here. All of that into Usharon. Now, he got to fight first. The Morbig Knights got to fight first. All that kind of stuff because of his ability. So he killed off a couple Aggradons, I think. Wasn't able to kill him. He was +1 to save from his realm, which I think was probably a mistake, because I think he never captured this objective. So I think he was contesting it, but he wasn't controlling it. So I don't think he should have gotten that +1 to save. I don't think it would have mattered. Maybe it would have helped me plink off a couple wounds, but it doesn't matter. I wasn't able to kill him, and I had everything into him, but a lot of it, even with -2 Ren from the Aggradons, it just wasn't enough. So couldn't get the job done there in that turn. I did end up killing Usharon in maybe the turn after that, so was able to finish that off by and I think he just kept the priority in his favor until maybe from 3 to 4, and at that point it didn't really matter. He only killed off 1 unit at that point. I had like Kroxigor over here, got into these ghouls. I had a few Aggradons here still in the middle. I think these Aggradons were the ones that eventually got killed off, and these Kroxigor were like over here on this objective. He was able to bring back in some Morbig Knights because of his ability. He's able to bring back 4 out of the 6 instead of just 3. And so they pop in over here. I redeploy Slann, and he makes like an 11 or 12 inch charge on the Slann, and was able to grab Slann and kill him. That may have even been his battle tactic too, like slay the entourage or something. I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't his battle tactic, but whatever it was, that was crazy. So he got Slann killed, and it comes down. Literally, this game comes down to turn 5. He gets a hero that's in this his terrain piece back here, gets out and hops on that objective, and that scores him an extra 3 points. And that wins the game. So I had this objective, this one. I think he had 1 hero here. And then he was able to tow on this one and score the board. Didn't get a battle tactic. Failed his battle tactic on that turn. But was able to score the board. And he ended up winning by 2 points. So a heck of a game there. A really fun one. We got in the middle and fought it out. Usharon was the MVP for sure of this game for him, because he just kept me tied down and kept me fighting last basically the entire game with what was stuck into him. So maybe if I were to play it again, I would still kill off those ghouls because that's important. But if I could have gotten priority, like send my units to the flanks and maybe just try to avoid Usharon there in the middle. Maybe that would have been a little bit better. I thought for sure I could kill him. Thought for sure with my Aggradons going into him as a monster on the charge, I could take care of him, but it just didn't happen. All right, game 3. We are playing Jaws of Gallet, another odd one here. And on these battle plans like this, where I don't have a good deployment zone, kind of like the shifting objectives one here, where your deployment zone is very shallow. On these types of battle plans, I almost never do Quetzal the Preserver. It's just not worth it. There's not enough area in your territory to stay in your territory to get that +1 or -1 to rend. So this is like an automatic. You're going +2 to move on this one. Even though, like, I'm 1 drop, he's 4 drop. I'm gonna make him go first. He's gonna get close to me. I don't really need that +2, but it'll come in handy over the course of the game. So playing Scott, and he's got Blades of Khorne. He is 4 drop. Prayer Lore, Blessings of Khorne. I don't know what any of this stuff does. Manifestation Lore, Judgments of Khorne. He's got a Bloodthirster of Insatiate, whatever that word is, Rage. And then in his General's Regiment, he's got a Skull Taker, another little hero, which was actually pretty cool to hear. You know, he took the Skull Taker as like the bodyguard. And so if he got that guy close enough to his Bloodthirster and the Bloodthirster was in combat, the Bloodthirster was -1 to hit, or -1 to attacks. Didn't really matter, but that was kind of a cool trick, I guess. The first regiment, the other regiment was Bloodstoker, Blood Warriors, some Blood Reavers, and then another regiment with another Bloodthirster, some Flesh Hounds, Slaughter Priest, and Warmongers. So a lot of small, minimum-sized units to kind of rack up that blood tithe, and then his two big hammers are the Bloodthirsters. So that's what we're looking at there. I haven't played Khorne in a while, but I thought this would be a pretty good game because he's, you know, heavy melee. I'm heavy melee, so I thought it was going to be a lot closer than I think what it ended up being. And maybe it would have if I hadn't gotten the double from 1 to 2. I'll talk about that here in a second. So I made him go first. You can see my Kroxigor are out here on the left flank to put some pressure on that objective. I've got another Kroxigor unit over here to pressure this objective, and then my 2 fast units here in the middle to pressure the middle. So maybe I still haven't learned that my Kroxigor need to be in the middle of the board instead of the Aggradons, but I want both units to have Aggradons near the Slann, so it's kind of like a catch-22. If I put my Aggradons out on the side, then Beastmaster is useless on the Slann. If I put my Kroxigor out there, they're a little bit slower, a lot slower, and so they can't quite make as big of an impact in some of these games. But these objectives are quite a bit closer, so they did fine. He sends out a Bloodthirster this way and just a smaller unit of infantry. I was able to redeploy, get a nice redeploy, and he failed the charge on turn 1 from the Bloodthirster. So I got a nice redeploy over there. He sent some Khorne dogs over here on the right side to take the flanks. Failing that charge also failed him his battle tactic, unfortunately. So he started off kind of on a wrong foot, but maybe that was just going for underdog status, which is a good one in this one because you can actually remove objectives in Jaws of Gallet. So he has a Bloodthirster here in the middle, and then just quite a few units right here. I did countercast the Gnashing Jaws, but I put it pretty far up. Just so if he did decide to charge it, at least he's not charging into me. Sometimes if you put them like right here and they make the charge, then all you've done is make it easier for them to charge you. But it's okay. If they're going to charge here, all that's going to do is just get them closer to me and make it easier to hit. He did make the charge, I think, with the Bloodthirster and then like one unit here, which kind of laid the Bloodthirster up as an easy target right here in the middle. I think if he had kept the Bloodthirster back behind that building, he would have been able to answer whatever my charge was in my turn. So if I bring Aggradons into here, then he could always answer back with Bloodthirsters on his turn. So on my turn, I'm take these Kroxigor up this way, and I'm able to actually, I gave them a run and charge. So I gave them the run and charge. That doesn't look like 12 inches right there, but it may just be the angle. I'd line them up so they could get run and charge if I needed them. So they make the charge over there. Left one here on this objective to grab that. I recast Gnashing Jaws over here to go attack the Khorne dogs, and I think it may have made the charge, or maybe that was the next turn. They got the charge over there, but the Burning Head ended up dealing with the Khorne dogs that were over there on the flank. And then Aggradons just shoved both my Aggradons were able to get here into this unit, which also included the Bloodthirster. And I charged my Kroxigor over here into this infantry, but like on the very corner. And he spent his last 2 command points to do a counter charge, which probably was the right option with the Bloodthirster into the Kroxigor. So I fight with I think over here, I fight with the Kroxigor first on this left flank. And I wiped this unit, the small unit, with I think I used 2 Kroxigor, and then I put 4 into the Bloodthirster. Wiped the small unit, did quite a bit of damage to the Bloodthirster, to be honest, and so that really helped out there. That started ticking him down quite a bit. He did some damage back. I think he killed 2 or 3 of the Bloodthirster, the Kroxigor with the Bloodthirster. Well, so it wasn't bad. Over here, we were able to just wipe out 1 unit, and I didn't think I was going to kill them that hard. Maybe we wiped out 2 units. There may have been 2 units here. I was hoping to do the pile-in to like bring those guys in so that he couldn't countercharge them on the next turn. And we put quite a bit of hurt on the Bloodthirster there. These Kroxigor were also able to actually tag up both this infantry unit and Kroxigor and Bloodthirster and do a little bit more damage to him. So at this point, I've killed off quite a bit of his smaller units and brought both Bloodthirsters to like half health or something. So that feels like a pretty good turn. I've taken all the objectives at that point and control the board. And I get the double going into 2. And so going into 2, at that point, I tabled him. And so at the top of 2, his army was gone. I even got back here, and if you look back here, he's got a hero here on this skull altar. And at some point, I can't remember if this was 2 or not, but like I even got these Kroxigor back there to deal with the skull altar and the guy there. So a resounding victory here for Seraphon. I did not think it was going to go this way, but I think that double turn is probably what did it. He may have had some more play there if he had gotten the turn there, but double turn from 1 to 2 with all 4 of these units all in combat both of those turns is just brutal. And so I was able to wipe out his army, and he brought back, he had enough blood tithe at that point. He brought back a Bloodthirster to kind of play some objectives and just get a few points. But overall, a very lopsided game. I didn't think it was going to go that way. I thought we were going to beat each other up for 5 rounds. But maybe we are a decent melee army, especially if we can get the double turn there. So a resounding victory there for Seraphon. All right, so that's it. 1 and 2 face some interesting lists, a lot of melee, and felt like all 4 of these units held up well. They were a lot harder to kill than most people thought, but struggled on some battle tactics, struggled on really finishing off some of the heavier units. A lot of it's because, look, none of these things are taking any buffs. I've got nothing in my army that's really going to buff Aggradons that well. I can give them 1 extra attack, get their rage going, sure, but that cost me 180 points in a hero slot. And it's not really that impactful, to be honest. Especially if you get debuffed and now their mounts are at 5s and 3s. Woohoo. I'm not going to hit with any of those. So, they still do good. Aggradons are still good. Kroxigor are great, especially if you get them into the right target. But they don't need as many buffs. All they want is all-out attack. You give them all-out attack into infantry with more than 10 units, 10 models, and oh boy, they are going to do a ton of damage. But, I mean, a 6-man unit couldn't clear 10 Kavalos Death Riders, and they had more than 10 models. So I lost that fight. Those 10 Death Riders, they wore down and killed 6 Kroxigor. So even into a unit, and I think my Kroxigor, I even took the special assignment of +1 Rend against cavalry. So even in that fight, the Kroxigor didn't win that. And that's against a cheaper unit. So you do feel the lack of buffs that Seraphon doesn't have. Khorne, I don't feel like Khorne, at least his list didn't really have that kind of thing, but Flesh Eater Courts, he's able to give plus attacks to everybody in a big range. He's able to bring stuff back very easily. He's got a lot of tricks on movement shenanigans and debuffs from Ushuron. OBR just has an insane amount of debuffs, some great damaging spells, and spells that are going to buff his heroes, and abilities that are going to buff his heroes in like every single phase. So you do start to feel kind of the lack of what our book has to offer. This is a very simplified list. So let's be honest, this isn't like a top tier list. So playing 1 game to a 2-point loss, that seems fine to me. Blowing out Khorne, obviously that may be an aberration, but that one felt good. The OBR, I think if I get the turn into 2, maybe I could pull that out. I don't know. I still think I would have had an uphill climb on that one. So overall, I did feel the like I miss the Hunters of Huanchi. That's for sure. It would have been nice to have them. But I'll have to drop one of these units and get a few more smaller things. So, to be honest, I think the Slann felt like the weakest link of this entire army. If I'm being honest, in these 3 games, the Slann felt like he did the least. I was not unbinding anything. Maybe that was just my rolls, but without any pluses, there wasn't a lot of, you're just raw rolling these unbinds, and a lot of casters have a plus, or they've got places of power or something like that. So, it felt like I wasn't real successful at unbinding stuff. And most of the time, the board wide didn't really matter because you're moving your armies closer together anyway, and 30 inches is huge. So, if you had spells with Slann that you could cast from across the board and keep him out of range of everybody, then I think that board wide stuff would make more sense. Now it doesn't seem really all that relevant. Other than turn 1. Turn 1 is good, don't get me wrong, but after turn 1, it's not really that relevant. Incandescent Restless didn't really use too much. Beastmaster was good. Realm Shaper Engine could have left it at home. Primal Energy, I liked Primal Energy. And Lore Celestial Manipulation is good. Just wish we had a little bit more damaging spells. So, all right, that's it for today. Hope you guys do better than me. Next time, I'm sure I'll bring some kind of goofy list again instead of what's actually good and what I tell y'all to bring in the list review videos. So I can't help it. I just like having fun. This is a fun game. Go out there and have fun. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next time.